Greetings, everyone, from the God Apart from Religion Revolution channel. This is video number 12 for building a healthy body. In this section, we will be talking about the ruination we see in the conduct of the modern church. Our desire is to be honest, pure, and correct versus being hateful or judgmental. So let's begin. Our words are not intended to be an insult or a judgment. They are first and foremost intended to be loving light for the primary purpose of dividing the soul and spirit, dividing the intentions of the heart. Criticizing behavior without alternative solutions is not what we are seeking. These words of an alternatively oriented reality are written to communicate almost exclusively to humble believers and seekers, to those who seek a better life and future. And not to the high-minded manipulators of this world. We understand that they will invariably go their own way, as they primarily seek their reward in the here and now. And for this single-mindedness, this directness on my part, I apologize in part, in that I must properly focus on those who are willing to take up their own personal spiritual crosses of self-sacrifice and personal internal worship. No stones, anger, or violence needed. No outward shows or displays of worldly power needed or desired. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood. Let us look at how the believer views life. Again, these words are written as intended aid and comfort for those who are in good conscience personally witnessing the heart-rending injustice of evil being called faith, good, and cruelty being put forth as law and correction by Christians in the present age. These words are written to those whose hearts are breaking over Christ and his spirits being exchanged for dollar bills. These words are written for those who longingly wish to embrace a kinder, gentler, more loving truth in the here and now. Is your heart breaking over the almost limitless intentional temptation, in person and electronically? Our economy seems to be based on tempting others. It is Sodom and Gomorrah of the electronic age. It is the sadness of sin and temptation being naturalized, accepted by virtually all. Do you worry about your husband or your wife or your children or your loved ones being tempted, distracted continually in a multitude of ways? Drugs, alcohol, visual beauty of various kinds, suggestive clothing, verbal invitations, movies, electronics, and art, and so on. The promises of riches and fame, houses and vacations, power and status, empty goals that seem to go on forever. Our heartfelt answer is not about violence, legalism, or oppression. Our answer to Sodom is not about a political movement to change these things. It's instead about our internal change of heart on a personal level. A change of heart that strengthens others and insulates us. It's about priorities. We reach out to our loved ones peacefully in the confident rest of God. But we do not encourage sin. We do not laugh at it or waller in it. Sin saddens our heart. Yet it does not break us or cause us to get tough, to go along with the world and the world's ways. We ask, how are religious organizations without the internal Spirit of Christ as their rule, viewing the most important aspect in church social life, their personal role modeling power? Are they good, accurate role models for Christ to each other? In the midst of an obviously covetous existence that the church backs, it will be completely unsurprising if the high-minded power brokers react in self-righteousness to the truth and to these innocent, not-for-profit statements of faith contained herein. It would be unsurprising if they react with anger, arguments, and verbal attacks, and ultimately even with violence against the true inward followers of Christ, even as these power brokers hypocritically embrace the ways of the world and the powers of the world. Unsurprisingly, because this is how those same pharisaical stepping stone spirits reacted to Christ's gentle, honest, and equal spirits originally. No one, they say, is allowed to derail everyone's Christian gravy train. It's become a gravy train for the well-educated, quote unquote. Earthly power and manipulation will be used, relied upon, and embraced, they scream. More Christian laws, a Christian nation, they cry out. As a political movement that Christ directly said was not the way to go. Fortunately, even in spite of the plainness and simplicity of our words, and from the limited perspective of the discerning of spirits, worldly supposed Christians are quite predictable if one really looks, i.e., likely to be threatening, angry, and even violent when confronted with the truth about their own disobedient behavior toward God and man. Which, of course, reveals a lot about who they are listening to and following in spirit. Who are they following as they embrace their imprisonings and violent tendencies? Who are they following? This is because they have not completely 100% sworn off violence or sworn off dwelling in Satan's well-known spirits, hate, greed, anger, all the rest, lies. Their minds are full of excuses for their own disobedient spiritual behavior, their compromises, and their lack of holiness. Simply put, worldly, political, social Christians want more and more and more of everything in the here and now in this world, with the exception of wanting more of Christ's internal lordship. Him telling them what to do personally. And they don't want anyone to take it from them, this power. And they don't want to share it in meaningful lose-win, nothing-gain situations, thus the pyramids. Breadcrumbs are their most frequent form of generosity in the form of marketing. They instead willfully embrace and occupy themselves with a twisted form of the financial numbers game competition and entertainment, when they should be embracing a humble, equal brotherhood with a Lord over them, with their God. Unfortunately, these voracious Christian, quote-unquote, serpent food eaters are also quite studious and persuasive debaters. They really work at it. You have to work real hard when you're twisting things. When it comes to preaching and propagating what God does not want his followers to do, think, and believe, they are experts. They are unwittingly like expansive flamethrowers that stoke the earthly fires of hell and judgment with their words and their wisdoms. Peace and true fellowship are far from them, and their ill-conceived hierarchical accusatory group dynamics, what they would call their leadership, which is not from Christ. Let's take a look at a different process for light. No sunglasses. Accordingly, a clear stand must be taken against both their human knowledge and the resulting interpersonal violence of all kinds that come from the modern church. But how can light be non-accusatory, unaccusatory? The answer, the light, not the observer or the church, must be the arbiter of truth. Let me say that again. The light itself, independent of everything else, must be the arbiter of truth. That's what Jesus came to share, was the light, the word. In other words, the truth about the behavior of another person and their standing before God must be an expression of self-governance and self-correction in secret between them and God. And it therefore must remain separate and not be subject to any other human claims or opinions. We're not to judge one another. In a reversal of what became common church practice, the truth, the light, must instead be applied by the hearer to the hearer. Each one of us, as we hear, we apply the light to ourselves. One must astonishingly to some apply that truth in worship to God, to themselves. With the direct help of the Holy Spirit, the promised helper that was going to be sent, that Jesus promised and said the Father would send, rather than in preference to the speaker or the group's truths being applied by the speaker or the group to the prospective hearer. Our judgment day is not about the group, it's about the individual. Got to get the individual right so that you can come together in proper order in the group. We must move away from bullying and peer pressure. This is another way of saying that the hearer is 100% responsible to Jesus, to God, for their own behavior choices and behavior. Which also implies that listening to others over and above themselves is like a way to hide, and over and above the Holy Spirit is a dangerous, perilous, unbiblical activity. Jesus' Spirit, his spirits, must come far and away first in terms of the counsel we receive in our minds and hearts. This is a true conversion, a true choosing of God individually. What do we believe? What do you believe? That's what matters. Not what somebody else tells you to believe. It's what you believe, what you've searched. In a sense, we speak out about God. When we do that, we are merely worshiping the light with no particular human object in mind. We just glory in the light. It is up to he who has ears to hear. Let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. Matthew 11:15, among other verses. For each person Each individual is responsible for seeing the light, i.e., hearing what the Spirit says to the churches. No one can or should be allowed to see or hear for you or I. This is the universal individual responsibility before God. There is no escaping it. From the time we are born, we have this responsibility. Whether we say we believe or we don't, but we have to make the call. This is where man's churches have operated like thieves in the night, intellectually stealing away the lordship of Christ and the individual opportunity and responsibility from the hearer. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. Contrary to their actions, there are no stand-ins on Judgment Day. Romans 14:10. Let's end this section here. Light is light. It is not judgment in and of itself. The truth must be said. We just speak the light. We hold on tightly to the light, not to hate others. In this next section, we will talk about the dangers of speaking the truth and the glory of maintaining the ability to speak the truth. Even Jesus had to be careful. The false church is full of anger just below the surface. Others are angry too. And we have to be careful. May the Lord bless you and keep you until we come together in the light of His Spirit once again. Thank you.